time now for Raiders Central Radio. Here's Sean Boyd and Sean Wally.
Raider Nation. This is your president speaking. And I approve this message.
Good evening, Raider Nation. Welcome to another edition of Raider Nation Central on Pro Football Central. I'm your co-host, Sean Boyd, alongside the other half of the Double S Express, Sean Wally. Mr. Wally, week one is upon us and is almost in the past. We've got a couple of games left tonight. But let's bring you in. How you doing today, man?
Sean Boyd, what's going on? Hello, Raider Nation. Welcome again to another edition of Raider Nation Central here on ProFootballCentral.com. And you know, the W in the win column didn't happen in Indianapolis for the Silver and Black. But man, you gotta have a half a smile for that output for the Raiders coming down to it, down to the wire, having a chance, being in the game, having a lead late. Had to be a good, positive, and a moral victory for Raider Nation.
Yes, you know, we'll definitely jump right into this. I mean, you know, it was bittersweet. You know, I mean, there was a point in the game, of course, late in the game where the Oakland Raiders were driving, and we'll go over the game summaries in a little bit. But, you know, that game was right there for the Oakland Raiders to take. You couldn't ask for a better scenario as far as Terrell Pryor going in and marching his team down the field. But just as you were saying, I mean, it was close. And, you know, one of the things that's been talked about is moral victories. And I can tell you that the Oakland Raiders are not looking for a moral victory. Maybe the fans, maybe you as Raider Nation fans see this as a moral victory. But I can tell you, get excited about some great football that's about to happen this year. Now, I'm not, you know, predicting anything as far as wins are concerned. I just think that the Oakland Raiders will have to go out there and play week after week, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. You're going to get a team that's going to compete, Sean Wally.
Well, yeah, it appears that Dennis Allen definitely has his players fighting and playing to the best of their abilities. And let's face it, you took a Andrew Luck-led Indianapolis Colts team to the wire. You had them on the ropes and just couldn't put them away. And that's something that a young team that Reggie McKenzie's putting together will learn as these situations continue to happen down the road. And you have a very winnable game in week two.
And yeah, one of the things that we have to do, Sean Wally, is make sure that, of course, this is the cliche that comes out all the time. It's just week one. So again, let's not get too excited about what's transpiring. But at the same time, Raider Nation, you have to love the progression that is going on. The talk is that, hey, whenever the Oakland Raiders stepped onto the field, that it was going to be a bona fide L. And you know, when we talked with Nate Dunleavy, one of the beat writers for the Indianapolis Colts last week, that sentiment was the same as that, hey, you know, even though the Raiders are in a regrouping phase and we like what's happening, it's just going to be business as usual, and the Indianapolis Colts are just going to come and trounce all over the Oakland Raiders, and that didn't happen.
No, absolutely not. You know, I have to admit, I was a little surprised when I looked at the scoreboard and I would watch Red Zone and pay attention to all the games, and the Raiders were in that game from start to finish. There was never a 20, 21, 28 point lead by the Colts, and you know, like I said, the Raiders had the lead in the second half, and it was definitely a good showing for the boys in silver and black.
Yeah, so you know, the biggest thing was that Oakland did get punched in the mouth in the beginning, and you know, they jumped out. Actually, Indianapolis Colts jumped out. To a 14-0 lead, and that didn't faze Oakland at all. And the biggest thing was that they made their adjustments. The Raiders did, came out in the second half, and played to win, and that's big. That's big, Sean Wally.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just goes to show you that, it starts not only at the top from what Mark Davis, Reggie McKenzie, and Dennis Allen are instilling on the roster, but also you have to look at Terrell Pryor. The guy didn't know he was starting until midweek last week, and he goes out there and he does what he did at Ohio State in his college days, gave his team a chance to win, and the ball was in his hands towards the end of the game with a chance to beat the Indianapolis Colts on the road, and that was a good showing.
Yeah, you mentioned a valid point, Sean Wally. The big thing is that Terrell Pryor comes from a winning tradition. He played at Ohio State, and everybody knows the story. It's been, broadcast day in and day out for a while that, hey, he took some money that he shouldn't have taken, and that ended his college career. But he was a good player for a very, very good Ohio State Buckeyes team. So for the life of me, he would have this labeling of coming into the NFL as being maybe, not a gamer, or maybe he can't pass, and all of these things that come with, not being a sound quarterback. I just think that Terrell Pryor needed the chance to play, and now that he's getting the chance to play, it looks like the only way to go right now for him is up.
Absolutely. And he is taking advantage of his chance, at least after 1 week in the NFL, as a starting quarterback. And if you haven't heard some of Terrell Pryor's post-game comments as to what he thinks of the late, great Al Davis, he even said things like, Al Davis is smiling today because, before Al Davis passed, he was the one that drafted Pryor. Davis was the one that believed in Pryor and told Pryor, you can be a great quarterback. You will be a great quarterback in this league. And he is hopefully, for Raider Nation, getting that chance now. And Terrell Pryor is very, very thankful and grateful that Al Davis gave him that shot when nobody else would.
Man, and boy, that is such great information that you're saying there, Sean, and you're exactly right. The last player picked by the late, great Al Davis, and you don't think that Terrell Pryor understands the situation, how big this is for him to just go out and excel and be a great football player, being the last player picked by Al Davis and, coming in and just making himself better. All indications show. And Terrell Pryor is just, when you listen to him talk and when he's being interviewed, there's a lot of passion as far as Terrell wanting to be better and wanting the team to be great. And I can tell you, from being in the locker rooms, Raider Nation from being in the locker rooms year in and year out for the past 7-8 years, this is a different feel that is in the locker room. And, even up till last year, in the past couple of years, when the Raiders would lose a football game, it seemed like it didn't matter that much. And, it almost felt like, hey, it was the fans took it harder. We took it harder than the teams did, or than the Oakland Raiders team did, because, hey, they were going to be okay. The Oakland Raiders lost yesterday, and everybody was looking to pat them on the back with a moral victory. And first thing Terrell Pryor says, and then Charles Woodson says the same thing. He says, man, we're not looking at moral victories. This was an L, and we needed to take care of business, and we didn't take care of business. And the sentiment in the locker room is that we are looking to come out to practice today, and we're looking to get sharper, and we're looking to get better. That, Raider Nation, is what you really need to understand. The unseen parts of the football game and the unseen parts of football is that the Raiders want to win. There's a different feel, as you were saying earlier, Sean Wally, as far as Dennis Allen is brought into the locker room. And man, I'm telling you, I don't know what this season's going to bring Oakland, but I can tell you that the next year or two, Oakland Raider fans, it's going to be a lot different. And I feel that O.co is going to be rocking. So be ready.
And one thing you can take away from what happened in Indianapolis is not only the fact that they were able to compete, had the chance to win towards the end, which is a great push forward for Raider football. But as we both alluded to already, it's the mindset. And Terrell Pryor was also key at saying this after the game as well. In post-game with reporters, he was saying, it doesn't matter what XYZ thinks of us, what the prognosticators, what the so-called experts have to say, whether we're going to be 0-16, 3-13, or 16-0. None of that matters. We have to go out there and perform at our best, and we're professional football players, and it's what we do out there on the field that matters. And it's not about me, it's about the team, it's about the 53 guys in this locker room and the Raider Nation that follows us, and that's what matters.
And that is an excellent point, Shawn. And, if you ever wondered if these guys actually read the newspaper clippings, you got your answer right there. Terrell Pryor and, of course, Charles Woodson saying the same thing, that, there are people out there that think a certain thing about us and they don't say, nice things about us, and that's okay. We just know that we have to go out here and play Oakland Raider football and start to turn things around to where, they're becoming successful. And so I think that that's great. I believe that is a great thing, that you have leadership on the team, not just from the coaching standpoint, but from the player standpoint that understands that. And that they're talking amongst themselves as far as, hey, it's us against the world. And, let's go out there and shock the world. And man, they almost did it. 21-17 loss. And one of the things that Terrell Pryor said in the interview was, and they asked him, they said, man, were you nervous down on that last drive? And he said, man, I wanted to dice them. I wanted to dice them. I wanted, I wasn't scared. I just knew that we could win. And, again, as Raider Nation fans, get excited about the type of leadership that you have now, because things will be different in the near future.
Now, with Terrell Pryor's good play at quarterback, 19 completions, 29 attempts, 65.5% completion percentage, which is NFL quality for the quarterback, 217 yards, 1 touchdown, unfortunately 2 interceptions. You have to look at his rushing yards, which not only set Raider record for quarterback rushing in a game, 13 carries, 112 yards, a awesome 8.6 average per rush. What might even be more amazing is, as of all of yesterday's games, including Thursday night's game, throughout the entire NFL, Terrell Pryor is the leading rusher in the entire NFL.
Is that not amazing? I mean, so it looks like a lot of defenses have just pinned their ears back and they have denied the run all through the NFL. And here Terrell Pryor comes out and he has 112, you said, or 112 yards rushing?
Correct,
112 yards rushing as a quarterback. That is exciting. I wanted to mention a few things, and by no means, and keep in mind, Raider Nation, these are by the numbers. I'm a numbers guy, so whenever you hear me talk, you're going to get a lot of numbers. And so I just want to talk about the quarterbacks of last year, the big quarterbacks, the big name quarterbacks that came in, that led their teams, Russell Wilson, Colin Kaepernick, and Andrew Luck, as starters, as their very first starts in the NFL. Just a comparison. Russell Wilson on September the 9th last year was 18 of 34 for 153 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception, was sacked 3 times with a 62.5 quarterback rating. He rushed for 8 rushes and 20 yards and a fumble in a loss to Arizona. And we all know how that turned out. Now, you look at Colin Kaepernick, 16 of 23, 243 yards, 2 TDs, 0 interceptions, 4 rushes for 10 yards. And then there's RG3. RG3 was just amazing. He set all kinds of records. I'm sure he's wishing that he had that week 1 right now as they're playing on Monday night right now. But he was 19 of 26 for 320 yards. Andrew Luck was 23 of 45 for 309 yards. Here's the thing. When Terrell Pryor was being interviewed, he said that he played awful. He was awful. And his numbers are 19 to 29, 217 yards in the air. And he also rushed for 112 yards. So you're looking at 340 yards or 335 yards combined. That's right up there with these young quarterbacks, these young guns of last year as far as starting off. Now, am I saying that, hey, the Raiders going to have the same record? No, because there's a lot more things that they need to work on outside of the quarterback position. But it's a great start to have a quarterback that's headsy, that's moving forward, and you're going to see better as the year goes on.
Now, from the positive of Terrell Pryor's day in Indianapolis, we turn to Run DMC. 17 carries, 48 yards, only a 2.8 average. He did get a touchdown. My question to you, Shawn Boyd, being around the Oakland Raiders, being at the games for the television networks, is it a question of Run DMC's heart and effort, or the opposite, that the O-line is so porous he has no holes to run through, or C, a combination of both?
Well, I am definitely going with probably C, a combination of both. Now, let me explain the reason why. So you have the offensive line that's been beleaguered, and we've talked about this, time and time again. You have Valdir that's out, and he'll be out for a little bit. He's on injured reserve. So what you had to do is you had to move Khalif Barnes over to the left tackle position. And so the Raiders are playing 3-card money with their offensive line. With that being said, they're trying to get used to each other. So it's almost like preseason still. It's almost like week 2 for the Oakland Raiders when it comes to the offensive line. Now, I've heard, I hear things about the offensive line that it's horrible, that, they can't do things right, and, they're going to get people killed. Well, I only believe that 50%. And here's why. In order for Terrell Pryor to run for those 112 yards that he ran for, he had to run through some tremendous gaps in order to get to where he got through. It wasn't like he ran outside the pocket the whole time. He ran right up the middle and then cut it to the outside a few times for a lot of his yards, which means that the offensive line was creating gaps in a pass block situation. I believe that the Oakland Raiders are a better pass blocking offensive line than they are a run blocking offensive line. So in order for Darren McFadden to actually get his due, the Oakland Raiders have to get a strong continuity on their offensive run blocking schemes. And so it's going to take them a little bit. And again, they've moved the line around. And so, maybe the second week or the third week, we'll see that a better progression.
It's a fabulous observation right there. You just had, Shawn, the fact that there have been injuries on the offensive line. Not only that, a lot of the guys are young, so they haven't had time to gel. You bring in the injury factor into that, and you're throwing new pieces into the puzzle and trying to make them all fit. It's like that, little kid toddler game everybody has in their house, trying to fit the round peg in the square hole, or vice versa. It doesn't work until you figure out how to mesh it all together, and that's exactly right. In the trenches, it takes continuity on either side of the line, offensive line or defensive line. You have to know what the guy next to you is going to do. And until they get to that point where, oh yeah, this center to my right, if you're the left guard, I know he's going to move this way. He's going to do that. He's going to go ABC. I know exactly what's going to happen to the people around me. Then it'll be a cohesive unit and a cohesive wall that can help the Raiders win games.
Yeah, and and again, it's going to take a little bit of time for that to happen. And once that happens, you're going to see Darren McFadden have better games. Now, something tells me this week as the Raiders take on Jacksonville, that you might see a couple of holes opening up a little bit more for Darren McFadden. Why? Because now teams are going to start looking for Terrell Pryor and his legs to move. So they're going to, you might have a spy or two that spies on Terrell Pryor, which might open up a couple of holes for Darren McFadden. So, definitely we can check to see what that looks like here in the upcoming week.
Oh, well, absolutely. Jacksonville is the cure to what ails you. Jacksonville is the 32nd ranked team in the NFL, in my opinion. And I've seen plenty of so-called experts, prognosticators, say that, Oakland's 31 or Oakland's 32. No way in the world, after Jacksonville had a home game with their new coach, former Seahawk defensive coordinator Gus Bradley, getting his first chance to show that he deserves that job, and Jacksonville rolls a gutter ball. They lay an egg. They only score 2 points because a safety was basically given to them. It was atrocious when you have Maurice Jones-Drew as your running back, and you let the Kansas City Chiefs, who some aren't sure if they're going to be good or not, come in there and blow them out, who the Raiders know well and will see twice this year as usual in the AFC West. And now Jacksonville has to fly across the country, which, of course, flying east to west is not as taxing on you as flying west to east. And they get blown up, score 2 points at home, does Jacksonville yesterday. And now the Raiders have their home crowd, their home stadium behind them. This is a very good chance the Raiders end Sunday 1-1.
Yeah, well, we definitely hope that happens, of course, and I believe that the Oakland Raiders will definitely do that. And so, that's going to be something that remains to be seen. So when we come back, I'm going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to break down the actual game, quarter to quarter, and what happened in just a couple of minutes. So you're listening to Raider Nation Central on Pro Football Central.
Football fans, check out the official T-shirt apparel shop for the Pro Football Central Radio Network. Check out bigfrog.com/Cincinnati. That's bigfrog.com/Cincinnati. You think it, we ink it. They have an awesome 24-hour turnaround time. You can also visit them at their fabulous store over at Anderson Town Center, 7426 Beachmont Avenue, Cincinnati, Ohio 45255. That's bigfrog.com/Cincinnati.
Hi, this is Ryan Riddle, former NFL player, now host Football Debate Central Radio with my co-host, Jason Gray. Come check us out on the Pro Football Central Radio Network, Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern. Let the debate begin.
Welcome back to Raider Nation Central on Pro Football Central. Raider Nation Central brought to you by Bonita Tequila. So, Mr. Wally, game time, Indianapolis against our Oakland Raiders. Tell us how the team fared in the first quarter.
Absolutely, Sean Boyd. That's right. I am Sean Wally, and we are the Double S Express, who host Raider Nation Central here on ProFootballCentral.com, brought to you by Bonita Tequila, premium tequila. Go get you some. And it was, it's just the Raiders were so close in this game, as you know, Raider Nation, and the Raider Nation faithful are there through thick and thin, and it has just been a tough few years, and they were so close in this game in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium. There were 65,412 in attendance, and we know a good few thousand of those were Raider Nation followers big time. And getting to the scoring in the game in the first quarter, the only score was a lone touchdown, a Reggie Wayne 12-yard reception from who else? Colts quarterback Andrew Luck. 7-0 Indy after one quarter. You had to think that, okay, the Raiders are in this, only one score down, not a huge issue. And then to start the second quarter, another TD by those hated Indianapolis Colts, another pass from Andrew Luck as Dwayne Allen accepts that pass for 20 yards and the score. The drive took 8 plays, 69 yards, 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And Sean Boyd, it is 14-0 Colts.
Man, and it didn't start out well for the Oakland Raiders. Of course, Andrew Luck looking to start out the season right, and he did just that. Didn't throw an incomplete pass in the first half, I believe, and connecting with Reggie Wayne on a couple of occasions, and also connected with former Oakland Raider Darius Hayward-Bay, moving the chains up the field. And at that point, you're thinking, oh my goodness, this is not going to be a great football game, and this isn't the way to start out the year. But things changed a little bit as the Oakland Raiders went into halftime, Sean Wally.
Absolutely. You've got the Raiders taking time off the clock with a nicely executed 11-play drive over 5 minutes and 54 seconds, taking 85 yards until a D. McFadden, Run DMC, 1-yard touchdown run, cutting the lead in half, 14-7. The Indianapolis Colts in the lead as the two teams head to the halftime break.
And this is one of the things, Sean, that we were talking about, Darren McFadden. Is he going to have a successful year? When the Raiders were down at the 2-yard line, they gave the ball to Rashad Jennings to see if he could punch it in. And it almost looked a little like Rashad was a little timid going into the line or trying to get into the end zone, and he was unsuccessful. What I saw when Darren McFadden came into the game, for one, I think he kind of looked at it as he was being slighted a little bit and saying, hey, why is Rashad Jennings in the game? And why am I not here to punch it in? So when Darren McFadden came in and ran that into the end zone, he ran with a lot of aggression, and he plowed over a couple of guys just to make sure that he got into the end zone. And when he got up, you could tell that he was excited about getting into the end zone and putting the Raiders on the board.
And coming out for the third period, the only scoring of the entire period belongs to the Silver and Black. The Oakland Raiders with who else? Sebastian Janikowski putting 3 on the board, a 38-yard field goal after another lengthy drive, 10 plays, 65 yards, taking 4 minutes and 41 seconds off the clock. 14-10, Raiders trail after 3.
Here's the difference from this year and what the Raiders have done the past couple of years, and this is why you can get excited, Raider Nation, on your football team. The Oakland Raiders have put together drives, and there's been a huge question on, hey, why hasn't Marcel Reese been put into the offense? And the reason is the playbook is really short right now for Terrell Pryor, and as the weeks go on, they're going to give him a little bit more. Greg Olson's going to feed him a little bit more, and you'll start to see Marcel Reese take a bigger role in it. But right now, what they want Terrell Pryor to do is get the ball out of his hands or tuck it and run. And so, you can expect some great things to happen as the year goes on.
As we move to the final period, excuse me there, Sean. Fourth quarter in Indianapolis, Lucas Oil Stadium, Raiders trail 14-10. The Raiders coming from behind, another 11-play drive. Look at that. 3 scoring drives, 11 plays, 10 plays, and now another 11 plays, amassing only 44 yards. Not great yards per play, but hey, it ended in a Denarius Moore 5-yard TD reception from Terrell Pryor, giving the Raiders the lead in the fourth quarter on the road, 17-14, and you can't ask for too much more than that.
Yeah, you're looking at your quarterback. This is your new starting quarterback, and he's marching up the field as if he's been doing this in the NFL for quite some time. Beautiful slant to Denarius Moore, perfect timing, put it in the right spot only to where his receiver can get it. And here we are, 17-14. Raiders need to just, clamp down on defense. And so then what happens, Mr. Wally?
Well, Andrew Luck happened. He's had 17 starts now in the NFL. Unfortunately for the Silver and Black and Raider Nation, he now has 8 come from behind victories. Andrew Luck leads an 11-play drive of his own amassing 80 yards, taking up 5 minutes and 49 seconds on the play clock, game clock. Andrew Luck actually ran for 19 yards and a touchdown, giving the Colts a 21-17 lead that would hold up for a 21-17 victory, but not before the Raiders had a chance to win it in the end.
Yes, and so here we are. Terrell Pryor couldn't ask for a better situation to come down and lead his team to victory, and just came up short, Sean Wally. I mean, it looked like, the Raiders were going to win. First and goal at the 8-yard line after a Denarius Moore completion. I believe it was a 19-yard completion down to the 8-yard line, and we're looking at fourth down on that play. And, here we are, Raider Nation fans. We're thinking, man, we're going to go in and take care of it. It just didn't come to fruition. There was a sack. There was that happened, a coverage sack that the Indianapolis Colts got. Raiders lost 14 yards on that, and then the interception happens at the end with Bethea for the Indianapolis Colts pulling it in. But it was a hard-fought game, and the Raiders had the chance to win. And right now, that's what we have to hang our hats on and look forward to in the weeks to come, is that this team's going to get better.
That's the voice of Sean Boyd. I am Sean Wally. Together we are the Double S Express here on Raider Nation Central on ProFootballCentral.com, brought to you by Bonita Tequila. And we'll return after this with guest Dan Wilkins of Pro Football Central. Right after this, you're listening to Raider Nation Central.
Cigar.com and enter the coupon code PFC to get 10% off your order. Lots of nice high-end cigars. That's FifthDownCigar.com. Enter the code PFC for 10% off your order.
Hey y'all, this is Jay Anderson, your host of Texas Central Radio, where I'm here each and every Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on the Pro Football Central Network. Tune in where I talk all things Texas, and I'd love to hear from you, the fans, where we can talk together. You can follow me on Twitter at Texas Central TL, where you can join in the conversation and be heard. And again, this is your host, Jay Anderson of Texas Central Radio.
Welcome back to Raider Nation Central on Pro Football Central. I'm Sean Boyd alongside Sean Wally, the Double S Express, bringing to you our first guest of the show, and that is Dan Wilkins. And Dan is one of the beat writers and writes for all NFL teams, but Dan is a Raider Nation fan. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good. And so thanks for being on the show. Of course, this segment of the show is brought to you by Bonita Tequila. And Dan, so the Indianapolis Colts, the Oakland Raiders, week 1. How do you think the Oakland Raiders fared?
You know what? I mean, everyone was going in expecting a little bit of a beatdown because the Raiders have been oft criticized, I guess we could say, throughout the entire offseason, labeled a terribly talented team, no talent. I mean, all you can say is they really surprised and showed something this week. I mean, that's a playoff caliber team they did that against, and one of the best quarterbacks in the league moving forward.
Yeah, definitely Andrew Luck is he was in the running for Rookie of the Year, of course, losing out to RG3. And, he definitely wanted to make a statement coming out here. And, the first half he did. I mean, I believe he was, 11 for 11? Is that what Andrew Luck's numbers were?
Yeah, I mean, in the first half, it wasn't looking too good. It was looking a little bit like the preseason efforts we saw put forth. But I think at halftime, we saw a lot of adjustments from Dennis Allen and Jason Tarver as far as defensive scheming goes. And they really seemed to give the Colts problems both in the run. They completely shut down the running game, and they were putting pressure on Luck throughout the second half.
Yeah, I really love what Jason Tarver is doing with the defense. And, one of the things is there's kind of been a roll call on that defense. So the defensive line has had some nicks and dings, just like the offensive line. But when you put in Pat Sims and you have Vance Walker coming in, and then you have Lamar Houston on the right end, now they have that pass rush that they were looking for and that we didn't see in the preseason. So what the defensive line did is they stepped up and they said, man, this is, you're going to see us put some pressure on the quarterback. And that actually happened. I guess what my concern is, Dan, is I haven't really heard much of a roll call from the defensive backs. So what do you think as far as our defensive backs are concerned?
Well, as far as the defensive backs go, I mean, in the first half, again, we saw those struggles. It looked like it was going to be big plays throughout the game, but once they got that pressure up front, you could see that they really made use of that. I mean, DJ Hayden got some time on the field, and he gave up a couple catches, but he was right there in coverage. I believe he gave us 3 catches, and he was right in coverage every time. I mean, to me, he looked good coming out as a nickel corner. I mean, it's going to be here and there. I think the safety play is going to be really improved, especially Tyvon Branch having Woodson with him now. But you know what? I guess we don't really know too much about the corners as of yet. But the more pressure they get up front, the better they're going to play, no doubt.
Definitely.
That's the voice of Dan Wilkins, ProFootballCentral.com, writer and blogger for the Oakland Raiders and big Raider Nation fan. Dan, what did you expect coming into Week 1, and has your view changed at all after the great performance in Indianapolis? Not getting the W, obviously, but definitely a good showing.
Well, I mean, heading in, I think throughout the offseason, I may have been called a homer quite often, and that's not the first time I have been, so that's all right. But, I mean, I had predicted that this team was going to surprise people. I liked the upgrades that they made at important positions. I mean, they lost Richard Seymour and Tommy Kelly, defensive tackle. But at the same time, throughout the time that they were there, they were still having a whole lot of trouble stopping the run anyway. So they added some important pieces at positions that they needed to. I love the upgrades at linebacker, cornerback, despite us not knowing what to expect from them or how they're going to perform yet. I think upgrades were made there. And, I mean, I think I had written a piece at one point throughout the offseason predicting a 7-9 season, and I know that might be a little bit of a lofty expectation, but I thought that they'd improved in some important positions, and they seemed to show that throughout this game, and now it's just a matter of whether they can keep it up or not.
Your article is all about Terrell Pryor, your recent article on ProFootballCentral.com, and how his time is now. And he definitely appeared to take advantage of his opportunity yesterday in Indianapolis. And what I find telling, a big difference between Terrell Pryor and Matt Flynn, who everybody thought would be the starter, just like last year in Seattle, is that Pryor sustained drives, moved the chains. He had multiple scoring drives of double-digit plays that took time off the clock, that had cohesiveness on the offense and kept drives alive. And Matt Flynn didn't do that in the preseason.
Right. I mean, with Pryor, the athletic ability and just ability overall is there. There's no doubt about that. He can do so many things for this offense, but one of the biggest things he does is completely changes how the defense plays their game. I mean, the threat alone of him running out of a drop back situation where the play breaks down or even out of the read option completely changes how the defense is going to play the Raiders offense overall. And I think we also have to remember that Pryor never ran the read option at Ohio State. He was in a full pro style offense. So he himself, even as good as he looks running the read option, he's still getting used to it now. So I think it only goes up from here.
Dan Wilkins, writer for Pro Football Central. Hey, Dan, you had mentioned Pryor not running the read option. Of course, the read option is huge in the NFL now, and we got a chance to witness Chip Kelly bringing in the Oregon Duck style offense, and Michael Vick in the Philadelphia Eagles running that to a T. Do you see that would be the style offense for Terrell Pryor to run?
I do. I mean, there's just a very important distinction between the read option and the Wildcat that was a trend a couple years back. I mean, the Wildcat was just putting a runner back there that could run against numbers up front. When you have a guy like Terrell Pryor who does have a throwing ability and can throw over the top, like Robert Griffin III and Russell Wilson and anyone else, and Michael Vick for that matter too. When you have that ability, that's going to allow you to beat the defense in a number more ways. I mean, the safeties are coming up to defend that read option. So with a quarterback that can throw, you can go over the top. I mean, it just adds so much more than just that Wildcat effect where you don't really have a throwing threat. I think Pryor can be that dual threat, and that's really important, and he'll flourish in that kind of offense like we saw yesterday.
Yeah, so one of the things that I'd mentioned at the beginning of the show was there's this huge moniker on Terrell Pryor as on accuracy. Now, I know that he hired a few coaches in the offseason to help him with his throwing, but I never really saw that he was inaccurate. I mean, in watching the game yesterday, it seemed like he had a lot of touch on the ball, and you know, but there's a tremendous upside for him as well.
Yeah, I mean, from this preseason, you could see how much improvement he had made, and I mean, I expect that to only continue as he keeps working on those very mechanics and trying to really improve his accuracy, because really, I mean, that entire offseason, that was his prime focus, and you see the result of it. I mean, he looked very good in this game, looked good at times throughout the preseason, but you could see that the effect that his work this offseason had. And, I mean, he's still young. I think he's 24 years old, so he's still got some improvement that he can make, and it should be fun to watch in the next couple of years.
Dan Wilkins, final question for you here on Raider Nation Central Radio on ProFootballCentral.com, brought to you by Bonita Tequila. Week 2, the Raiders' home opener at O.co in Oakland welcomes in the Gus Bradley-led Jacksonville Jaguars. Who do you see winning that game?
Well, if the Raiders put in a similar performance to this weekend, you have to say that the Raiders are going to pull out that win and go 1-1. But again, just like anything else, it is only one game that we can't get too high or too low on. So if they come out and don't play well against Jacksonville and slide to 0-2, then this effort was all for nothing, right? It's got to be consistent in building upon that. And if they do, I mean, they could start out on that course of surprising a lot of people this season. So I think the Raiders come out with a win, but we got to wait and see if they can put out a similar effort.
Dan Wilkins, beat writer for Pro Football Central. Dan, how can our listeners get a hold of you?
I'm on Twitter at Dan Wilkins NFL, and constantly putting up articles both on Pro Football Central and Bleacher Report covering all things Oakland Raiders.
That's good stuff. So yeah, definitely make sure, Raider Nation fans, that you get out and take a look at a lot of the stuff that Dan Wilkins is doing. Of course, great article, his latest article on Terrell Pryor. So some exciting things in Raiderland. And so, hey, Dan, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
All right, that's Dan Wilkins, Pro Football Central writer. We're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to close out the show. You're listening to Raider Nation Central on Pro Football Central.
Football fans, looking to get healthy this year? Now is the time, and I have the perfect place for you. Save 10% at onit.com/football radio. Exclusive PFC radio listeners save 10% off their order. That's onit.com, onit.com/football radio.
Football fans, check out ProFootballCentral.com for all the latest NFL news and analysis. Also, check out the very popular Pro Football Central Radio Network for awesome NFL talk around the league. Go to ProFootballCentral.com. ProFootballCentral.com.
Welcome back to Raider Nation Central on Pro Football Central. Mr. Wally, it has been a great show. One more week in the books. The Oakland Raiders taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars this upcoming weekend. Of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars losing to the Kansas City Chiefs 28-2. So you know that O.co is going to be rocking, Mr. Wally, with excitement for the Raiders to pull out victory number 1.
Absolutely. And, you know, I got to say that Jacksonville looks like the doormat of the NFL right now, but I know firsthand from being around Gus Bradley a lot last year in Seattle, the last few years working games in Seattle, and actually had a chance to speak to him one-on-one watching the first college football game that Penn State played after their fiasco at Seahawk headquarters last season, that he is a great guy. He knows football, and he will not put up with a 2-point performance. So don't look for that, Raider Nation. Look for a competitive game, and the key to winning on Sunday will be stopping MJD.
Yeah, my biggest thing is, Sean Wally, is that the Raiders stay consistent, have that fervor and that energy that they came out with in the second half, and start out the game with that particular energy. And I believe that Oakland can take care of business. Now, I'm not looking for 28-2. Of course, Blaine Gabbert, the Jacksonville Jaguars starting quarterback who started the season, is out with an injury. So you're looking at Chad Henne. And, of course, he has the wherewithal to actually manage and run a football team, of course, being from the University of Michigan and having that tutelage. So, Raider Nation, I mean, definitely look for the Jacksonville Jaguars to come out with a little added incentive to let everybody know and to let the Oakland Raiders know that game is in the past and they're looking to move forward. But it still should be a great game, Sean Wally.
Yeah, it should definitely be competitive. It's the NFL, and any given Sunday is what they say and what they made the movie about. So we'll see what happens at O.co.
Definitely. And so this segment is brought to you by Bonita Tequila. And Raider Nation, just make sure that you go out and, if you haven't purchased your tickets, go out and buy your tickets. We expect O.co to be alive and rocking for the first home game of the NFL season. For Sean Wally, I'm Sean Boyd, the Double S Express. You have been listening to Raider Nation Central on Pro Football Central. See you next week.
This has been a presentation of the Pro Football Central Network. For news, blogs, highlights, and more, log on to ProFootballCentral.com.